This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
Hey guys, I'm Si. Welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. This is episode number 112. We are powered by Violent Money. Please check out Violent Money TV on YouTube, the Violent Money products at violentmoney.co.uk. And of course, we have a 20% discount exclusively for you for all that good stuff. It's ACE20. Get yourself some proper nice clobber, as it were. But we'll have a bit more about that later on. We've been blessed with many different guests from boxing and MMA, and this week is no different. So we look forward to speaking to our guest. We're, of course, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. So drop a like, comment, ask your questions and whatnot. And if you prefer your podcast in audio form, all the shows produced by A.C.E Podcast Nation, including the Danny Batten Fight Show, available at the Sports Social Podcast Network, the UK's first dedicated all sports podcast network. Where will you find your next show at the sportssocial.co.uk? Anything from daily Premier League shows to boxing and more. But of course, all of A.C.E Podcast Nation shows there. We got you covered for pretty much every subject. But joining me, as ever, first and foremost, former Cage Warriors champion, UK MMA legend, it is Mr. Daniel Batten. How are you, mate? You all right?
All good, Si. I'm all set to go.
Oh, mate, there is a lot to talk about this week. A lot to talk about. So It's going to be an interesting show. But our guest this week, delighted to say he was, unfortunately couldn't make it last week, but being the gent that he is, he was straight in this week. He's held British and Commonwealth titles at welterweight. It is the RokNRolla, Mr. Chris Jenkins. How are you, buddy?
I'm all good, lads. I apologise for last week. It was one of them things last week that was out of my hands, but I made up for it now, hopefully this week. And thanks for having me on.
Not a problem, mate. Not a problem. Really looking forward to it. Loads to talk about on the boxing side, especially. Obviously, there was some interesting stuff went on last night, which we'll get to in just a bit. But I want to kind of open up with you, mate, a bit. I had Gav going on in the studio a couple of weeks back. He spoke particularly highly of your performance on the Eubank versus Liam Williams card. For me, I thought you were the standout performer on the whole card, to be honest. It was the fight I enjoyed the most. How did you feel coming out of it and going into it and come out of it? Because it was a big show, wasn't it?
Mate, it was a massive show, for Cardiff. I don't think there's been a big show there for many, many years. And, we had the phone call a couple of weeks out. Do you want to fight him? And Gary knows straight away. He said yes. He phoned me. And, I won.
Yes, you did.
Obviously, before the fight, I've done all the good work in the gym. But, in the changing rooms, I was saying to Gary, I'm done. I'm going to lose this. This guy's a former unified world champion, He's been there, he's done it, he's got a t-shirt, and I'm just a little lad from Ystrad, Southwest Wales. I'm waiting for the comment from British, but I'm fighting some animal. But, in the fight, we looked what round one was. We picked up 2, 3, 4, and 5. And for some reason, I stood off the gas in 6 and 7, but then I picked up in 8. And, I give myself a 5, 6 out of 10 performance, but, I was really pleased to have a win, and especially in front of the home crowd as well.
Yes, mate, indeed. I mean, how much of a difference does it make to have those Welsh fans behind you? Obviously, there was a couple of Welsh fighters on the card. The Welsh fans travel particularly well anyway, don't they, wherever you fight? But to have that support in your home country is obviously a different animal, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously after the fight, I was meeting people from the Rhondda Valleys, Newport, Cardiff, from all over, and they said they followed me, and it does give you that little bit of a lift in the ring. But my next fight is obviously away in Newcastle, but it don't matter. It's a ring at the end of the day, isn't it?
That's it, mate. It's the same scenario, and I guess apart from you of course you hear the roar from the crowd and stuff like that, but ultimately when you're in there, you've got your mind solely on the plan at hand. Interesting fight coming up. You're fighting Florian Marquez, isn't it? So he's got quite a big following. I forget who it was. Someone on he came up recently, and someone on the show said they haven't been massively impressed with him, but I think he's put on a couple of decent performances, and he's obviously, like I say, he's got a big following. It's not an easy fight.
No. Florian Marku, his name is, the Albanian king.
That's the one.
I just said, if he's the Albanian king, I could be the Prince of Wales. So
there we go. There we go, mate.
But no, he's 11-0. He's got an IBF international title. I think that's on the line as well. So it's more incentive to me. But after the last fight, obviously before that, I fell out of love with the game. And after our last win, the fire's back in the belly. I was running 2 days after the fight. I was back on the road, not ballooning up out of camp. Obviously resting because of the knuckle, but he's a good fighter. He's got a massive fan base. I think he's got more fans than I know people. So, but that don't make no difference in the ring. It's me against him at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I'm kind of interested. Like you said, I fell out of love with the game then. Was that like a combination of things, or was it like because of COVID and all, so much time out of the ring and training, things like that? Like, I'm kind of interested in that.
Yeah, it's a number of things. I lost in July and I broke my ribs. 3 or 4 ribs went. And then there was no offers coming. And me with a young family, I got 3 young lads, twins, 9-year-old twins and a 3-year-old. If I'm not fighting, and my expenses back for the gym are anything from a couple £100 a month to a bit more than that, I've still got to pay my bills. So, it got to a point where I was working because I'm self-employed, so I haven't really got no sponsors behind me that I wish I did have. But, I kept in the gym. I was out the gym, popping in the gym, working, just being a dad and just doing what I have to do to survive. And, I did have a time where I don't think I'm going to go back again. But Gary Lockett, my coach, who I respect highly in and out of boxing, and my wife, obviously, and my manager, Mark Mopraya, they said, come on now, Chris, you got a little bit to go. So I just toughed it out really for the good 6 months that I was inactive for, and this opportunity came, and I took it with both hands.
Absolutely, mate. And I think, like Danny, it's hard, isn't it? It's and I think it's probably been even harder for boxers and for MMA fighters over these last couple of years when you've got no fights come in because of X, Y, and Z, but you still got to pay your bills. So unless you're at the very, very top level where you've got millions in the bank, you're in a position where, or there's going to be a time where you've got to go and you've got to do what you've got to do, haven't you? You've got to pay your bills, you've got to feed your family, you've got to do all this stuff. and it's not an easy life in that situation. Then, is it, for fighters?
No, it's not easy, and you kind of summed it up really. Unless you're at the top end of any of these combat sports, where you can sort of like tough it out through these lulls, you're okay. But for regular competitors trying to move their way up, they do have to hold down a regular job. They do have families at home and mouths to feed. Not easy situation. I remember all too well trying to make it in my sport with 2 young kids. Was the sole earner in my family as well, so I had to work and do overtime. In fact, I had more than one job, and had to get ready for fights as well. Yeah, it was. To be honest, my situation back then, as it was, I probably could not reach the heights. In the modern day term, I mean, you have to really, really commit. And you touched on a very interesting subject, but never really went into it. It's the sponsorship. I think this is what's really, really important for young professional athletes to be able to sustain themselves and not have to perhaps work a full-time job. And I think this is the difficulty a lot here in the UK, that not many companies are willing to put up and fund these professional athletes. In fact, I don't think UK government, they're not very good at supporting many of the sports, are they, here in the UK?
No,
whereas in America, it seems to come a whole lot easier. No, don't get me wrong. I know every country has their difficulties, but I'd say in the UK, this is a particular difficulty that we have to face as competitors. So yeah, I feel your pain with that one, Chris. It's not easy, not straightforward. It becomes scary times as well, doesn't it? When your income that you want to get from your sport that you have love and passion for, and it goes all quiet, and you can't see no future, no light at the end of the tunnel in the situation we've had over the last 2 years. So it must have been real scary times. But look, you prevailed, and what a story. You're setting yourself up for a good book to read.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That is it. It's like you said. There is some fighters out there now who got sponsorship. And good on them, and for the people who's getting behind them. But it's like you said, if a lot more people in the UK understood exactly what happens with a sponsorship and how they can actually get money back from it, because they all just think that we're asking them for possibly £300 a week, and all of a sudden then they think, whoa, I'm losing £300 a week, yeah? But there is actually ways of getting that money back. And to somebody like myself or another fighter in Wales or in England or Scotland anyway, that 300 quid will make a difference from that person having to work 5 days a week to possibly only working once a week and having them 4 more days in the gym. But, it's like you said, I've always been one of them people who don't give up in life and have a bit of a laugh. But like you said, there's scary times when there's no end goal, and you are getting into debt, and the only thing you've got to do is do what you've been brought up to do, and that's work for a living.
Yeah, Mason. At the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. But you mentioned there about companies can claim money back and stuff from things like sponsorships, and I think I think then in some ways it's on the government or the sport, like the sport side of the government, to make companies aware that if they sponsor local athletes and stuff like that, that they it's not just sort of money which is gone. Because I think a lot more, especially like local businesses and that. And look, there's a lot of local businesses around who do support. They do great work with local athletes and stuff like that. But also, I think there would be more if they would, if they were more aware of how it works and stuff like that. And it's one of those frustrating things, I guess. But we will come back to you, Chris, because obviously you've got a lot to talk about, mate. But I do want to, kind of get your view generally, first of all, on the problem or the aesthetic from the outside of boxing for sort of casual viewers, maybe who just tune into big fights, who see these fights go maybe be quite one-sided, and then it goes to a judge, and it goes to the guy who's been, clearly lost to everyone who's watching. Do you think that turns off potential viewers, fans, especially if you've got like young sort of teenage lads who are watching the big fights and they see a fight like, like last night, it's got to turn him off, doesn't it? It's got to. There's
Well,
no way around it.
It's been going on for years, hasn't it? I think I seen a tweet that Tony Bellew put out there regarding boxers go in the ring and smash each other for 12 rounds, and then the camera straight in our face, and then these judges, what are they going to do? They get brought up to the board of control, they give their side, and then all of a sudden then, okay, yes, he's giving their side, job done. But on the fight last night, I personally had Jack Catteral winning the fight by a clear margin, to be fair. And you've got to feel for him. This isn't a matter of the 2 years he's been waiting. This is a matter of from when he started boxing as a young boy, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And all the sacrifice he's put there. And last night could have been him being unified world champion. But not only that, the money, the endorsements he could have had now could have been in the millions. Where if he's going to go and challenge for another world title, he'd be lucky to get 100, 200 grand.
Yeah, I found it left a real bitter taste in my mouth last night because I watched it. I thought it was a good fight. I thought Jack Catteral, I thought he was excellent because no one gave him much of a chance. It was all about Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor's obviously coming off of a unifying the titles. And a lot of the talk before the fight was that Josh Taylor isn't getting perhaps the attention that he should be getting. And I think I agree with that as well. Like compared to some other fighters out there, he hasn't probably got the attention considering his achievements. But last night, I thought he was outboxed for the majority of the fight. Even when Cattarall sort of eased off a little bit towards the end, he still won the 11th round. And it left a real bitter taste. And me and Danny have talked a lot over the shows about the judges in boxing. They really do kind of give that sour taste. And last night it was a big fight for British boxing. And it just, even the judge who gave it to Cattarall, I think he gave it to him by a point. And it was just really very strange. As a boxer, as you get into those latter rounds, even if say you're clearly winning, you've won the majority of the rounds. Is it in your mind still, well, I need to finish this just in case? Just because I can't see how it can't be a worry that even if you feel like you've won, you still might get done by the judges.
Well, this happened to me. I boxed in Belfast 2015 against a lad called Paul Sutcliffe Jr. I was brought in 2 weeks notice. Guy Loggett got me in terrific shape and I was fit, and I thought I won the fight 7-3, and the scorecards came back. I think it was 96-93 to him. And I was going to walk out the ring and I was absolutely devastated. And we had Irish fans coming up to me saying, "You got robbed there." So it's one of them things, I could have easily stepped away from the sport then, but I just can't imagine how Cattarall and his team are feeling today. Like, he should be waking up this morning being unified world champion.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Dan, is this, he's worked all his life for that. He's been boxing since a very young age. He also stepped aside so that Josh Taylor could unify all the titles. When he was due a title shot, he stepped aside so that they could unify the titles. He's finally got his shot, completely outboxes the champion for the majority of the fight, thinks, the bell rings in the 12th round. He thinks he's finally achieved his dream and his life's going to be, it's going to change forever, only to be completely stitched up by the decision. To me, from someone who's, not a fighter, from the outside, I look at that and I think, how do you come back from that mentally? How can you motivate yourself to then go and try again because you just think, well, the game's corrupt? I don't know. Danny, as an MMA guy, how do you look at it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just hurtful all around, isn't it? And I think more than the hurt that it takes to your ego, or however it hurts you in that way, I think the fact that when it opens up, or could have or should have opened up opportunities for you to have really meaningful, life-changing money, that's really hurtful, because look, we're in this combat sport not just for the love of it, but because we want to try and get financial, stability going in our lives. It's just not an easy sport, and to have it taken away by bad judging. I was going to say, is there no kind of overseeing committee that could look at judging? Because we've spoke many times about the refereeing. Sometimes we see some bad refereeing, although predominantly mostly good, particularly in the MMA. Regards anyway, UFCs, let's just use that as an example. But they're all there for see, and that opens criticism, and it's all out there to see for everyone to make comments on. But the judges they hide behind, don't they? You never really get to see who these judges are in any big way. They're never accountable in terms of coming out into the media to explain how they come to the decisions that they have over certain fights. I think it would be really good to have an overseeing committee that actually question these judges and to give their breakdown on how they score things, to perhaps put them under a bit more pressure. We are just humans after all. I know we make mistakes, but some mistakes are just not forgivable. And from what I've read about, because I only read about it, I haven't seen it, it seems that this is something that really needs to be addressed in some way. But how you go about it, I don't know. I'm just surmising a committee to put these judges under some kind of watchful eye would help, perhaps.
We have Ben Doherty on at 9, so obviously he can shed a bit of light on the ins and outs of that side, because I know he's been kind of talking about that on social media today. The fact that it won't, nothing will change. It'll stay the same. The decision will not get overturned, as I saw some people saying it should be. Like, it's not going to happen. It's as far as boxing as an organization, if you like, is concerned. That was the result. That was the judges. That's kind of it. And I thought Jack, I'd quite like to get your take on this, Chris. I thought Jack Cattarall's team was phenomenal last night during the fight, but after the fight, I thought it was unbelievable, because what he did, he was, of course, he was pissed off, and the last thing you wanted to do with him was put him on a microphone, because all he's going to do is get himself in trouble from whoever, boxing boards and authorities and that. And it's not going to do him any good. Yes, he might feel a bit better for, having his say. So he went back to the changing room, but even his coach was like genuine, someone who himself has been a champion, has had a great career in his own right. Like, even he was so emotional talking about it. I don't know. It's going to be difficult to deal with. Like, how important is his backroom team to him now, Chris?
It's everything, isn't it? Like you said, he's stood aside. He's been working in the gym with Jamie Moore. I can't remember the other fella's name. I do apologise. Travis, I think, I don't know. But anyway, he's been working and the game plan they had was great throughout. He might have, looking from an outside in, looked to be spoiling a bit by holding.
Yeah.
But if I just got the wrong end of a decision like he had last night, I think my head would have gone. So I know for a fact the guy would have taken me out that position. I said, look, you go back. I will go and speak to the cameras. And, Jamie Moore just said some home truths. And it's going to ruffle some feathers, but so be it. I think it's not only the British boxing, it's not just the general public, but I think before long, there will be no fighters coming from any other country over here, because we'll have such a bad reputation of basically robbing fighters.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last week. I think it was last week, where some American fighters won't come and fight over here because they don't trust the judging. And we've kind of always said in this country over the years, like, the British fighters always get screwed over if they fight in Mexico or they fight in America.
Germany, isn't it, usually?
Yeah. Of course, the Klitschko's famously, there was I forget the fight now, years ago. One of the Klitschko's fought someone, lost quite comfortably, and then got the judge's decision. But there's one thing having maybe some home judges sort of thing, where it's slightly slanted towards that, the home side, and it's a close fight, and all right, you kind of got that home advantage, all right, you can kind of accept that. But to me, at least, last night was very one-sided, And I don't know. I left a real, like I say, a sour taste in the mouth, and I've really felt for Jack Catteral because I can only imagine like what he's going through. He's going to need, his family, his friends, his coaching team to really pick him up. Like, and you've talked, Chris, how important your missus was, and Gary was, and your coaches and that, and your friends who picked you up when you was sort of struggling with it. Like, he's going to be in a similar situation, a different situation, but he's going to have similar feelings, isn't he? Because
he's going to be a lot worse. He's going to be a lot worse than what I was. And, when you're saying about the judges situation, there was IBF, WBA, WBC, all the belts on the line.
Yeah.
And you had 3 British judges. Surely they should have brought someone from Italy, from Spain, or possibly from America. So that would have made it a little bit more better, you know what I mean? But
yeah. I thought, well, you'd think they'd have to bring in.
That's what you'd think. Yeah, you would think that, in the UFC or anything like that, you wouldn't have, obviously you will have, but you might have foreign judges coming in from different countries for 2 Americans trying to win the belt. I don't know how it works, but you wouldn't think you'd have 2 UK fighters trying to unify the belts with 3 British judges and a British referee.
Yeah, it's spot on, mate. It's especially with all those titles on, worldwide titles on the line, you'd think they would be judges from different places to make sure that it goes well. And you'd think boxing as a sport would want to make sure when it's a unified title like that, any world title fight really, but you would think they'd want to make sure there's no controversy. There's no mistake by the ref. There's no, biting or, some of the other wild stuff we've seen over the years. There's no bad judging decision because they want it to be a good spectacle for boxing. And that's why I cannot understand it. I'm flabbergasted by it still, like nearly, 24 hours later almost. And obviously, like Craig in the chat made a great point. He says Jack Catteral was unbeaten. He's also lost his unbeaten record, which I get, in the grand scheme of things, that don't matter. But like, it's just another kind of almost like
it's another nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that's the word. That's what I was looking for. It's I feel for him. I got to say, he wouldn't be human if at some point he doesn't at least contemplate, even if it's only for a split second, being done with boxing. I think he wouldn't be human if he didn't consider that. Well, obviously, we're going to touch a bit more, Dan, on the boxing, on last night's boxing when Ben comes on, because I know he's going to have a lot to say. So I want to kind of focus on Chris for a bit. Like Chris, as you sort of at this stage in your career, you mentioned obviously you need to get the sponsors and stuff like that sorted and whatnot. But like from a purely sporting side of things, what's your ambitions now? Like, where do you want to be in, say, 18 months, 2 years?
Oh, that is a good question, because at the minute I'm just taking it one fight at a time.
Of course, yeah.
People say 33 is old. I don't
Not
feel
these
old.
days, I don't think, is it? Not as much as it was maybe a few years ago.
You're a lot older than me. But no, in reality, I'm just taking one fight at a time. I'd like to be busy this year. Obviously, I've got a fight lined up in 5 weeks. That's April. I would love to get a fight in June. Sorry. I don't know. Yeah, early June. And then maybe 1 or 2 towards the tail end of the year. And then who knows? Maybe I've got some belts, or maybe I've made enough money to say, look, I'm done with the boxing and I can concentrate on what I'm doing after my boxing, because we don't make enough money in this game to be the likes of McGregor or the Furies or the Joshuas. We make enough money just to survive. So, move on and just become a normal dad, and I'll happily work 6-7 days a week.
It's like in the conversations we've had, mate, like over text and that, and then just before we went live and stuff, the one thing which really strikes me is like how very proud you are of your kids, of the fact you're a dad. You take that responsibility incredibly seriously, and of course you do. But it's just something which really shines through with you, mate, straight away from speaking to you. speaking to you before, and as a dad of 3 teenage boys, I laugh to myself because I know what's coming your way over the next few years. But it's just going to get more chaotic and more mayhem for you, my friend. But especially with twins, because you'll have them at the same time and so same age at the same time.
Mate, it's
That'd
at the
be
end of the
brutal for
day.
you.
At the end of the day, I brought them into the world. They're my responsibility, and that's where I live my life. You know, I'll go without clothes on my back to keep them warm.
Absolutely.
I think most fathers like yourself, Danny, and yourself,
Absolutely.
you all do the same. You know, you put your own back out for your own children.
100%, mate. 100%. Got a question from Craig in the chat. He said, watching that Scottish heavyweight title fight last night, I don't think people were particularly impressed with the quality of the fighters, but he said Welsh boxing is stronger than that, isn't it? Question mark. I think Welsh boxing is miles stronger than that. Maybe not in the heavyweight division. I don't know about that, but like generally, I think boxing in Wales is the same as MMA in Wales is a very high level. Would you agree with that, Chris?
Yeah, I would say you got a few lads up in Scotland that are doing very well.
Yes.
Obviously, Josh Taylor controversy from this evening. You got McGregor. I think his name is. He's doing well up there, but you know, there's a lot of talent in Wales, not just in the boxing, but in the Bellator and the UFC. We've had a number of fighters in there recently. For instance, you got Jack Shaw. You've got Brett Pikey Johns. And you got a couple of others. And also the bare knuckle as well has come quite through. So, you know, we're just a fighting nation.
100%. By the way, we'll talk about Brett Johns later. Brett Johns was incredible on Friday. Considering how long he's been out, he's absolutely superb in his Bellator debut. You mentioned there about the bare knuckle boxing. Is that a route that you would consider at any point if the money was offered, or not interested?
No. Mate, have you seen how much I got cut in boxing?
You're a bleeder, though, aren't you? You bleed. You're one of those guys who just bleeds and bleeds and bleeds. I noticed that from watching some of your fights. Some people just get cut, like even if it's not like necessarily big shots, they just cut up quite well. You seem to bleed a lot.
Mate, I'm a bleeder. I think I had 24 stitches in this one after one fight. I had about 19 in there.
Do you find that they, because of those stitches were there now that you had previously, do you find they cut open easier when you fight now?
No. Believe it or not, people think when you've been cut there, you're going to cut again. But because it's a scar, it's actually thicker than your actual skin. So that won't cut again. Maybe above where it joins onto the actual skin, maybe that will slit. But believe it or not, I've only got cut by head clashes. So it's like you going over there now and headbutting the wall. 9 out of 10, you're going to get cut. So, you know, I just got to get on with it. You know, like Gary said in one fight, I'm cut, Gary. He went, you've been cut before. Get on with it. So.
Like it. Danny, was you a bleeder?
No. I only ever really got cut once in a fight on my forehead with an elbow strike. Nothing too bad. It was almost like a puncture wound on my forehead. But I'm not someone that bleeds out so easy either. So I just had a hole.
See that guy, Dan, last night on the UFC? I've forgotten which one it was. What was his name?
I know the females, two females that we watched.
There's one guy
they were cut up nicely.
There was one guy on the UFC last night. Literally, it was his first fight as well. And it was like, welcome to the UFC. He was just covered from like his head to his waist in blood. I'll have to find out who that was. Chris, how did you get into boxing? Like, how did you get into combat sports and that side of things? Was you good at other sports, or was it always kind of fighting?
Tried playing rugby, as Welsh people are very proud rugby people. It didn't work out for me, as all the people were a lot bigger than me at the time. So there was a skinny little boy turning around with the ball, and all of a sudden then I found myself upside down. And so I just went boxing because I had to challenge myself. I wouldn't say I was academically well in school. I had no ambitions to do well in school, and I just chucked on a pair of gloves, and they say you fall in love with something, and I fell in love with boxing.
Was you a kid who would fight a lot? Generally, like before you got into boxing, was you like a kid who would have a few scraps and stuff, or not really?
No, I'm more like the class clown, where teachers would, Chris, headmaster's office, and just be very mischievous and do stupid things, like maybe one time I've gone from where I was living up to the next street and basically broke into a caravan and thinking it was cool, me laying there, and next thing you know, some guys chased me home. So there's nothing really nasty with what I done, but I was just really mischievous, like climbing on buildings you shouldn't be and
finding trouble.
Yeah, but there's no malice in it. I was never aggressive. I've always respected the older generation as well. And but with boxing, it just made me learn a lot more in life of how to look after yourself. Not physically, but healthy wise as well, like eating the right foods. And I just fell in love with it.
Yeah. Did you?
You name drops, a few names in the UFC and so on and so forth that come from Wales. Is it something that you're following as well, or do you just follow your boxing? But it does seem that you're a little bit up on what's going on in the MMA world.
I like to follow the lads, like Brett Jones, Pikey Jones. He's a local lad. He's from Swansea. He's a Jack boy. Like I'm a Swansea Jack as well. I like to follow him and how he's doing his career. And Jack Shaw then also, he does handwork with Guy Locker, my coach. So I've actually sparred a lot with him as well. And I'd like to say he's my friend. Wow. So and even the youngsters come out on the local shows. I know a few lads who on the, I think it's MMA Wales. I think it might be or some production team or something. And stuff, and all that. So I do know a bit of what's going on. I try to keep my head into it, and after boxing, I'd love to get into it, not to fight, just to learn all the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the groundwork and stuff, because, I don't want to be punching people when I'm 50, 60. I'd rather just grab somebody and go, right, off you go.
Yeah. Would you be interested, like when your fighting career is over, would you be interested in kind of going into coaching, like what Gary does and the other guys? Is that something you'd be looking to get into?
Yeah, yes and no, because it's going to be a really, really big commitment. You in this sport, it's like boxing. You either go all out or nothing. And in my opinion, if you're going to be a coach, you can't just pop in and pop out when it suits you.
Of course.
Because you'll have these young kids that's looking up to you to guide them in boxing and out of boxing as well. Because some children come to the gym to get away from certain things that's happening outside of boxing, So you want to try and get them on the right path of life outside of boxing, because where they might be, making headway in the boxing game in school or outside of school, getting into mischief they shouldn't be doing. So, I'd like to sit down and think about that, but I would definitely still keep in touch with Guy Lockett, because he's not just my coach, he's a friend for life, and he's done so much for me. And I would always be popping into Cardiff and not passing my knowledge on, but just chucking the body bag on and leaving the boys punch shit out of me, really.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned earlier about like just how boxing helped you understand things like diet and fitness and things like that. I think I'd imagine even as a fighter, even if your fighting career is over, you still use boxing to keep fit and, like you say, to go and see people, coach people. Do you do much work like coaching kids and that now, or not really?
I've done a little bit, helping little kids and stuff, or say I get to the gym, there might be some youngsters there. I will watch them on a bag and say, look, when you throw in your jab, you got to make sure your hand's coming back. And they're like, but why? Because, you don't want to be cut by me. So I'm having a little laugh and joke, but I would love to really get into it. I would love to help out, but it's like I said, it's the commitment issue. You don't want to be leaving children hanging, you know what I mean?
No, of course.
Where they might have a really, really, really good opportunity of being a very good fighter, then because of me not turning up certain days, they might just walk away from it.
Yeah.
And you could have lost the next world champion there.
Of course, yeah. What so when you decided like you were gonna be a professional fighter and go into the fighting side of things, was your family all like supportive, or was there anyone who was like, oh, they don't want you to go into fighting? Anything like that, or was everyone on board?
Everyone was well on board, and I fell out of love with boxing actually when the amateur system was all point scoring and all that rubbish, and I was getting schooled by Luke Campbell, believe it or not.
Okay.
He beat me 20 points to nil, and I was absolutely gutted. I got stopped, and I came out the ring, and I said, he didn't even hit me, man. But, we fell out of love with it, and then I just thought the time was now to transition from amateur to pro. I was reaching the age of 23, give or take. So I was at the right age to turn pro, not when I was 18, where I was a lot more immature than what I was now.
Yeah.
And I think it was, the best decision I've made, really.
It's I find it interesting, like, because obviously boxing amateur is very different, isn't it, from what I understand. I don't know a great deal about it, but it's a very different. It's almost like a different sport, isn't it, in some ways. When you look back now at your fights that you've had so far to date, is there like a particular performance where you look back at it and you're like, that was the best version of me?
Oh, well, I'm going to have to say the British title fight against Johnny Garden after attempting to win it on 2 occasions. Then 4 years later down the line, I've moved gyms, got a new manager, not changed my style, but brought out my best attributes and then executed the game plan. That's probably the best of where I am, but yeah, probably the British title fight.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I in terms of your next fight up against Florian, any particular? Well, I know you can't give too much away, I suppose, but like any particular game plan or part of his game that you think you can capitalize on or focus on or anything like that?
It sounds funny now, right? But this is my game plan. To punch him more times than he punches me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's
that will
that
work.
simple. It does, isn't it? Dan, I got asked that in after the weigh-in when I was fighting Judas and Gongo, and the presenter guy said, well, what's your plan to win, Chris? I went, punch him more times he punches me. But in reality, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I can see flaws. I can see flaws in his game. Like, I know I got flaws in my game. So I just think it makes for a great fight.
Yeah, I think it's on paper, it looks like it's going to be a really, really exciting fight to watch. And like obviously you mentioned your opponent in the last fight was it's former unified champion. Surely, in terms of going forward, whoever you fight, you've got nothing to fear when you fight anyone because you fought someone who's been the very, very best at your weight. Do you know what I mean? Is that how you feel, or is it you just gotta take each fight as it comes, regardless?
No, obviously I'm going into this next fight, I'm going to be confident because I've beaten a former unified world champion. Yes, he might not be as good as he was back then, but on paper, it's down on record. It'll never get taken away from me. Like he was a former unified world champion, but I will still have doubts in that dressing room. Literally 5 minutes before I'm going to fight, but I'm going to lose.
Wow.
And I always put myself down. I don't think as many people will do that. I don't know if any UFC lads do it or you've ever done yourself down, but in a dressing room, you put yourself down, and as the first bell goes, then a switch goes in your head. and then you don't even think about what's happened back then. You think, what's going on? After round one, you're thinking, yes, I can get this, I can win this. And you just start building confidence as the rounds go on.
Interesting. I think combat sports generally, Dan, is it's mental as much as it is physical as well, isn't it? And I think to
be honest with you, Si, the physical side of it is the easy bit. To be honest, practically anyone can get fit, can get strong, but the mental side of it, you're either natural fighter or not, as the case may be, and it is a real difficult thing to address. Now, being a coach and seeing the way different fighters behave leading up to the fight, in the changing room just before the fight, it's really quite diverse. You've got all these different personalities, all these different people that approach it differently, and as a coach, you've got to try and blend in with their mentality, with their way as they come up to a fight, to put them in the best mindset as you possibly can. For me, I was happy to admit that I was fearful of certain people. I know I was going in there with people that weren't just in it to do a martial art performance. They wanted to run through me and hurt me. Sometimes they didn't particularly like me. There'd been things written on the internet, and we'd have a few things going backwards and forwards, and that always drums up a bit of adrenaline, a bit of fear. And mostly I would say it's the fear of losing, but there has been a couple of people that I've been up against that I knew could do mean things to me and had mean intentions. But for me, I faced up to those fears. For other people, they let those fears get the better of them and they freeze in there. But what Chris, for my mind, from what I understood, what Chris, you were saying, that you just, the bell goes and you switch.
Yeah.
I think that's when you've nailed this whole competing, and I call it pressure performance. I think when you can get instinctual, you go on everything that you've done over the years for training. It just flows. It just happens. I think the worst situation you can ever be in when you go in there and compete is when you're thinking and you're conscious of absolutely everything that's going on. Because when you're conscious, you're too slow. I think everything's got to be reactive, instinctual in there. And I've had a good number of fights where I could say I never feared what was coming back at me. I just knew I was going to do what was needed to be done to evade it, to counter it, and so on and so forth. I was just on automatic pilot. And there's been other fights that I just never got going, and I was very, very conscious of everything I was doing. It was making me second guess myself. And I don't know, that's how I saw it. And I guess that's what you're talking about, Chris, that when that bell goes, you just switch and you just do what you got to do. And that's it. There's nothing else to be said about it.
Yeah, that is probably, you've hit the nail bang on the head. It's one of them things that as soon as that bell goes, a switch goes in your head, and you don't know nobody. All you see is him. And I might do my wife. My one person I might do is my wife, and definitely my coach, because I'm scared of him.
Yeah.
They're the two people I mainly hear, and you just switch on, and as the fight goes along, it may be the second round, just you get into a little groove when you're thinking, look, I've done this, and then as you see a shot come, it's like you see a pad, you visualize a pad, but obviously you visualize it on his head. So you slip when you throw, and you're thinking, yes, I've got this, and you're enjoying it. It sounds stupid, but you're just enjoying being in the ring or the cage, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with you with that.
I really like it. Right, Chris, what we like to do now, just before we let you go, is first of all, I'm going to ask you one question I want to ask you, but then we play something called the one-word game. So I give you a list of people from boxing or combat sports, and you just say. Am
I allowed to swear?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. You just say the first thing which comes to mind when you hear that name. Just before that, though, Tyson Fury versus Dillon White's coming up in April at Wembley. Yeah, who do you think is going to win?
You've got to go with Fury, but something deep down me saying maybe White will catch him.
Interesting.
Maybe Fury's been up there now what he is, and he's not right, but he's training hard, but he's not training hard enough, because this isn't a challenge to him. His challenge was Deontay Wilder. Wilder was his biggest challenge, obviously on top of his mental health, but Wilder, there's no one else he wants. So I don't know what you think, Dan. I don't know what you think.
You know what? I totally agree with you. I think that for Dwight, it's going to be something that's a massive opportunity for him. He's going to give everything and some to take this opportunity with both gloves, so to speak. And I think you're right. What kind of fury you're going to get on that day, and I think that's really key for anybody, but even more so with someone like Fury. You touched on his mental health. I think if his head ain't in the right place, we could see a real different fight from what people are expecting. I don't think this is a foregone conclusion. If you get a on top of the world Tyson Fury, I don't think there's much in competition, but I'm just kind of curious on what kind of training prep that he'll really put in. How committed would he really be? And it's all down to the respect for the individual. I'm not too sure whether he'll respect that Dwight could perhaps be a threat to him, and I think he absolutely can be a threat to him. Time will tell. It is a fight that I would prefer to watch that fight than him fighting someone like Joshua, as an example. I think it'd be a better fight.
Interesting, that is. I think he had more respect for the power of Deontay Wilder than he had he does of Dillian White. To me, the one thing I kind of agree with you guys there is that the only thing which might get him unstuck is if he's looking towards the Anthony Joshua fight before he's dealt with Dillian White. But then on the other hand, if he boxes like he did in the Deontay Wilder fights, I think he probably beats Dillian White quite comfortably. So it's kind of weighing that up and what Tyson Fury turns up. But we'll see very soon, I guess. Right. Lastly, then, Chris, to finish off, then the one-word game. So you just say the first thing which comes to mind as soon as you hear these names. So the first one, nice and easy, Joe Calzaghe.
Slick.
Jack Shaw.
My mate.
Here we go. Gary Lockett.
My adopted dad. He's going to kill me for that.
Eddie Hearn.
Fast car.
Chris Eubank Jr.
Former hard man.
There you go. You'd see you were nicer than Gavin was when he spoke about Chris Eubank Jr. Jake
Eubank
Paul.
Jr.
Yeah.
Eubank, who's that? The one who boxed Liam Williams?
Yeah.
Bit of a prick.
Is
that better?
Yeah, that's what Gavin said as well. Jake Paul.
YouTuber. Wannabe boxer.
Anthony Joshua.
Game over.
Canelo Alvarez.
Ginger.
No one said
that's
that.
That's a first.
Yeah.
I was going to say a Mexican legend, but I thought, let's mix it up a bit.
Everyone says that. Everyone says that. And then the final name on the list, Tyson Fury.
Number 1.
There we go. I'll tell you what, I'll add a name to the list as well. Florian Marquez. Mark.
The Albanian King.
There we go. Chris RokNRolla Jenkins, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. Really enjoyed having you on the show, and you're most welcome to come back again. Maybe closer to your fight or after your fight, go and have a chat with us, mate. Really
most definitely. Camp's underway. We've had our first weekend. We've got 4 hard weeks ahead now, so it'll just basically be up in the morning, train, come home, train in the evening. It's rather boring, but it's what I love doing. And especially, the situation now when you're in camp, it's train, rest, train. So
here we go. Been a pleasure, my friend. You take care and keep in touch, buddy.
I will do. Thanks for having me on, lads. Appreciate it.
Good luck, Chris.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Take care, lads.
Nice chatty lad.
Yeah, I like him.
That was easy.
Got a lot of time for Chris. He's I was really impressed with his performance as well in at on the Eubank card. Okay, just before Ben is going to join us, he's actually at an event this evening to do with White and Fury, but he is going to join. He's finding a quiet corner and he's going to join us in just a second. So just while we wait for that, a little word from our sponsors, as it were. Danny Batten Fight Show and A.C.E Podcast Nation, proudly supported by manscaped.com, and really looking forward to their new spring package. But excuse me, I lost my voice then. Manscaped.com has just launched their 4th generation performance package. The ultimate package includes the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Manscaped, the leaders in male grooming, have done it again. You can take your grooming to the next level. You can join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with the performance package by going to manscaped.com. You can get 20% off and free shipping with the code ACE Nation, and that is exclusive code just for viewers of the channel. And manscaped.com, of course, providing top quality equipment to take care of your family jewels, whether it be the crop preserver ball deodorant, the crop reviver toner, both of which changed the game for me. I was so impressed. And I kind of was like, why haven't I been using this for the last 40 odd years? Unbelievable stuff. You've got the performance boxer briefs, which are, like me and Danny have talked about multiple times. Comfort, the safety of the products, and the cruelty-free products, of course, as well, which I think is important. You've got the Weed Whacker nose and hair trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, which I mentioned. I've used so many beard and body trimmers over the years, tried all different ones, and the Lawnmower 4.0 is actually genuinely the best one I've come up with. I like it, not just because it's the close shave and everything, which is quality with it, but I like the size of it. So you can I do it for the edges of my beard and stuff like that. Get in all the little nooks and crannies, get everything going. The Lawnmower 4.0 has got skin-safe technology to avoid those nicks, as 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction on and off switch that can engage a travel lock, and it gives you the ability to turn on a 4,000 K LED spotlight. So if your light's not too good or you need a bit of extra light, perfect stuff with the torch for a more precise shave. And did I mention it's also waterproof? So I don't know what you are waiting for. They have got you covered on all angles, whether you are male or female. Manscaped.com. They've got products for shaving. They've got clothing. They've got colognes. They've got anti-chafing boxer shorts, deodorants, all sorts. Everything you could think of that you need to keep your body tip-top and look after those special areas. Manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping with the code ACE Nation. And if you can't remember that, it's all in the description below. Please check them out. Please support our brand partners and sponsors. Really, really helps us out a lot as we continue to work and find different partners to work with. We thank them, of course, for sponsoring the show and the channel. So, Danny, just as we're waiting for Ben, mate, I've got to say, did you watch Bellator on Friday?
I've only seen bits. I haven't had time because I was busy this weekend as well. So
I know, yeah.
It's been difficult.
Me and Rodri did a little watch along for the kind of the prelims, and kind of watched the Welsh lads. Scott Pedersen had an absolute tear up with his opponent, Kelly. But to be fair, the boy he fought he looked real good. I was very, very impressed with him. But Scott hung in there, and he saw out all 3 rounds. He lost, unfortunately, but I was very impressed with his opponent. But Brett Johns came in, and he was the kind of the main event of the prelims, and he was super impressive. It's so dominant. I was. So if you remember back when he fought Tony Gravely after a big long layout, we kind of said he was very impressive against someone who was quite dangerous in the wrestling.
Really good wrestler, yeah.
Yeah, and he ended up wrestling. Brett ended up out wrestling him in some ways. Brett just dominated his opponent. And for a Bellator debut, and for someone who's been out for so long because of COVID, and he had obviously his Bellator debut was cancelled because his opponent was injured initially. I thought he was incredible, and it was exciting because he couldn't have done, and what I liked about it as well is he got the finish. Like he dominated him, he brutalized him, but then he finished it as well. He didn't, it didn't just go to a decision. He couldn't have done any more in his debut, mate. Very, very impressive, and I thought he made a bit of a statement.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. It is a fight that I'm, gagging to go and see. But, like I said, I've just been super busy, but I can't wait to see it. And what will be really good is to get him on the show and tell us firsthand his experiences.
I know he's got.
Curious to know really whether anything.
Yeah.
Sorry, so I was talking at the same time there. I just wonder whether he'd done anything different in his prep and his training. What seemed to fall in place so well, because although we've seen great performances before, from what I'm hearing about and what I've read about, it's quite something special that he done. So he's really making a statement on Bellator, and I think he needs to, because he's what age is he now, Brett Johns?
I think he's not old. Like I think he's about 30 odd.
But he kind of
younger.
Yeah, he kind of wants to make a realistic run for that belt.
Yeah, well, when he signed for Bellator, we said, didn't we, that we thought he might go and he might be right up there quite quickly. They have developed a bit of their divisions since, so I think it does look a bit tougher than perhaps it did when he first signed. But look, Brett Johns has the ability to go and be a title contender without a shadow of a doubt. He absolutely destroyed Karakov, who was, by the way, was like 4 or 5-0. So he was no mug. He was. I would question maybe that he hadn't fought someone of the quality of Brett before. So Brett is 30. So he's in 30. The peak of his career, mate.
Yeah. He'll be wanting to make it happen now, while he's in this peak part of his life and career.
And people forget, and I was saying this to Rodri as well, Dan. Sorry to interrupt you, mate. The only people Brett lost to in UFC was Aljamain Sterling and Pedro Munez. They're 2 top 5 fighters. Aljamain Sterling's the champion, isn't he?
That's right.
Like they're the only people he's lost to. Everyone else he's beaten. And I think that's why I felt that them kind of lowballing him a little bit was probably a bit disrespectful. They probably just assumed. I'm thinking that he was going to just re-sign and didn't think too much about it. Perhaps offered him the same, or but he gambled on himself. He valued himself, and Bellator came in and offered him a nice contract, and away we go. So he's got to go now, isn't it? And like at the age he's at the perfect age. He's experienced at fighting at the top level. He's fought some of the best bantamweights in the world. Yeah. So now's the time to really push on, I guess.
It does. It feels like that time, though, doesn't it, Si? Like you say, he's reaching the peak of his career now, physically, mentally, clearly in a good place. He's rocking up some great wins, and he's got this, fresh new contract that he can chip away at in Bellator. Everything's just seemingly pointing to the right direction of heading towards that title. And you're absolutely right. He's capable of doing it and taking it all the way.
100%, mate. One fight I would advise you to watch on the Bellator card is the Sinead Kavanagh versus fight.
I have seen that one. Because someone texted me saying, "You got to watch this," and I watched it. Her knee blew out, didn't it? In the first few seconds, she said.
So she said her knee blew out in the first 5-6 seconds of the fight. But like she couldn't do anything with it. She couldn't put any weight on it. She couldn't move. She couldn't kick. And the fact that I'm going to check now to see if they've announced what her injury is. But I think she did a ACL. The way she was walking and the way it kept collapsing, that's a cruciate ligament kind of thing where your leg collapses like that.
Something serious has gone. Gone. And I found it hard to watch. I was watching it cringing. I just thought it was going to buckle a different direction because of the way she was holding it and having trouble.
That's what's unbelievable about it.
Yeah.
Right. I say, we'll come back to that, mate, because Ben's here, and I know I appreciate he's somewhere, so let's get him in. There he is.
Hi guys.
How are you, Ben?
Listen, I'm struggling here with signal and with the noise. It's where I go, where it's quiet, like the toilets. There's no signal. That's the MC right now. I don't know if it's Michael Buffer or the other guy, but that's my problem right now. I think to make things even worse, the headphones have stopped working as well. So.
Right, okay. Well, I'll tell you what then, Ben, we'll keep it kind of brief. I just wanted to kind of get your take on last night in particular.
Oh, no.
That's a shame. We might have to, we'll have to revisit him perhaps next time. That's a shame because I know he's at a good event, which would have been really interesting to chat about. But that's the problem with these big places. The signals are not always great. We'll see now. He might come back in and join us. We'll see if his signal picks up a little bit. The fact that Sinead Kavanagh won is pretty mental, to be honest, because and like
just
Liam
craziness
did
how she
try
pulled
to
up.
target her leg, didn't she? And in fact,
she did.
In the end, when she went for the leg lock, I think that's what
it went against her.
Doing of her,
yeah, I know, and it's crazy. I always get frustrated when I see these fighters give away position for a leg lock. Not to say there ain't a time and a place to go for them, sort of thing, but I just don't think that was a good call. Kavanagh's really aggressive. As soon as she gets into a position to strike, she will, regardless of whether it's in the grappling exchange or on the feet. She's very, very tenacious, and she just let her in there. Whether it was consequential to the overall score of the fight or not, I don't know. But yeah, I just find it's a little disappointing to see him. Maybe it's just temptation too much. She might have been having to corner people shouting out to go for the leg, go for the leg. But I don't think go for the leg.
At the wrong time, didn't she?
Yeah, exactly right. I think I would agree.
But she did it at the wrong time.
Yeah, I think she should have targeted it on the feet.
Yes.
And just kept it on the feet. She's getting too close. I mean, tactically, she really had the win in the bag. I mean, you had a fighter in front of you, really partially disabled mobility-wise. You don't have to fear any power coming back. It's not like they're going to be able to shoot and take you down. You can just really start to unload at range. I think tactically, it was the wrong approach. I think Kavanagh could have been taken out in that final round, but
I think what Kavanagh did very well was she took it to the feet as quick as possible, and as soon as she was able to, she got it to the feet. To the ground, sorry. But I agree with you. Leah McCourt should have done the opposite. I felt like any chance she was able to wriggle free and get back, she should have just gone. She should have backed away and got up to her feet.
It was not
taking it to the feet at all, at all costs almost.
Yeah, not very clever, strategically at all in that sort of situation.
Balls of steel, mate.
Absolutely. But look, Kavanagh got allowed a route of opportunity, a route of hope, and she would take it every single time. She's that type of character, and she did. And she succeeded with it. Absolutely impressive performance. I just hope she's going to be all right. I mean, clearly going to need some sort of surgery on that knee. It's something seriously gone wrong.
Well. Like she can't. It's difficult to come back from a long layout with a knee injury, like a serious knee injury. And I think even if she'd lost that fight, there was talk of kind of what was going to be next for her. And now she's fighting Cyborg again.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's it shows the thin margins sometimes that these fighters are dealing with, doesn't it? So that was Bellator was good. Very quickly on Gerhard Mousasi, really kind of showing. I did watch that because it was very, very brief, wasn't it? So I could watch that literally in just 1 minute. And he come out. He come out very different. He come out really fast. And one of the things I would say is an opportunity to defeat someone like Mousasi is to get ahead in the early rounds and then try and stay ahead and stay out of trouble. He sort of like pours onto you round after round, doesn't he? But he really come on quick. I was really quite surprised about it. He had something to prove. He looked like because he
looked well driven
too with the what's his head off the commentary team. He fell out with him a little bit because the guy had questioned. Basically said if he's sometimes he turns up and he doesn't look bothered, and then other times he looks up and he's a killer, and he took it quite personally. And look, I don't know whether he felt like a bit aggrieved and.
Yeah, but you know what? I actually agree with those comments, though. Sometimes he does look like he's just taking things in his stride, almost like he's not bothered to be there. Although perhaps that might be a little bit, too harsh to say, literally in that sense. I'm sure he wants to be there, But I think sometimes certain
He's
opponents
just
just
quite a laid back
perhaps.
character as well.
Yeah, and I don't think certain opponents that he has any fear of, and he can do it with as little effort as possible. I mean, come on, this guy's not had many losses on his record. When you add up all the wins that he's had, he's been around for a very long time, and not just in the MMA world. He's had a pretty substantial striking background as well, and successful career there. It's totally and utterly impressive. The guy really, really is. I'd say he's the best he's ever been, even though he's been around for so long. He's the best he's ever been. He really is.
Wouldn't you
Looking
love
as sharp
to see
as ever.
Him fight some of the top UFC guys now?
I would love to
in the
see him go
form he's
back,
in.
but I don't think that'll ever happen for some for unfortunate
course.
reasons. But I don't think he needs to. I think he's a superstar in Bellator. I'm sure he'd be being paid handsomely, or at least you would hope so or expect so. He's been around the sport that long. You imagine that he's staying around because the money's good. And clearly the motivation to do so, to be around, it must be there regardless of whether the financial situation is secure there or not with him. He clearly loves to fight. I mean, he's done it so many times. And I'm excited for him, to be honest. It's nice seeing him perform so incredibly well and to keep doing it. He has had a few losses, as you would expect in such a long career, but he always bounces instantly back from it, and each time incrementally looks better version of himself each time. So he's learning from his losses, he's consolidating himself with his wins, and that is the sign of someone that's not just a normal champion but a great champion, and I think he proved that.
Another guy who kind of keeps seemingly just keeps proving more and more that he is getting better and better. He's the real deal. Some people thought Bobby Green had a chance, but Islam Makhachev put him away in pretty devastating fashion.
Yeah. He sort of like went in with upper body entries, didn't he? And Bobby Green was doing really well defending, wrist wrestling really well, which is, one of the key aspects of defending against the Russian wrestlers, because they really want to link their hands on you. When they do, it's normally a one-way traffic to the mat, and for which not many people get back off the mat. And when they do, they quickly get put back down there because they know how to link their hands as they come back up. They're very, very good at this system. And in fact, I'd say all those Russians have really got the system down to such a degree that the percentage chance of recovering in a round or recovering from the fight, once they find a way to get you down, you're pretty much going to lose. You have to avoid that grappling exchange from the feet at all costs. Now, Bobby Green made the mistake, although he was wrist wrestling, when it got disengaged, he just didn't circulate his footwork as urgently enough, because he almost had a disregard of Islam. It's like he was so confident with his performance. He only fought like couple of weeks ago, didn't he? And it's almost like he just had no regard, no urgency in his footwork enough for me, and he just got entered in on with a level change. Nothing super clever about it. And once he got his leg tackled, he got caught with his knees together. I mean, it goes to show he just was not prepared for a level change. Just caught out. I think he caught out being slapdaisical. He was just not urgent about anything there, and he paid the ultimate price. I think maybe a percentage or two of overconfidence played part of the role of his demise in this match, to be honest. And lessons learned. Will Bobby Green come back from it? I think he will. I think he's proved that time and time again. I think he's not done a dusted deal by any stretch, and he took it short notice. He can hide behind that excuse to a point.
Of course you can. Anytime you take a short notice fight, you've got a built-in excuse, really, haven't you? I know that how fighters look at it, but it is a built-in excuse because it's what it is, isn't it? Just before we kind of have a look at some of the other fights very quickly, I do want to make a point of saying Alexander Usyk, current heavyweight champion in boxing, both Klitschko brothers, millionaires, guys who absolutely could live anywhere in the world they want in comfort. As soon as the stuff kicked off with Russia and Ukraine, and all three of them flew out to a nearby country and then walked over the border, because you can't fly into Ukraine because the airspace is obviously what it is. All three of them flew out to Ukraine, not together, but have gone out and are now fighting alongside the Ukrainian forces and citizens to defend their country. And I just think we often talk about fighters being warriors from a fighting point of view. But I just think those guys deserve so much credit because didn't even think twice about it. And they make no mistake, they've no financial gain from it. There's nothing, they don't gain anything from going out there. They could happily live in America or wherever they live. And they've made enough money to comfortably live the rest of their life.
Yeah. No, it's incredible what they've chose to do.
Show of bravery.
It is, and you get your fighters who are just competitors in terms of the sporting side of MMA, boxing, however, whatever the combat sport is. There's a sporting approach to it, and then there's the real fighters, and I think they just demonstrating how that rare breed that not only were great in their profession, their sport, but totally admirable in their mentality and their moral compass to go over there and put their lives on the line to keep the land and the people safe that they care so much about. Without getting too political about it, that act on their own, fair play to them, what can you say? Wow. I mean, I just hope they don't get hurt or worse. I mean, because that's the reality of what they're going into. Sad. But like you said, they didn't think twice. They've just gone straight out there and walking over to defend the borders. Truly incredible. I just hope they come back and talk about a successful story with it all. I really do. God bless them at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that not just them, everybody who's affected by it. It's a horrible situation, and it's a situation which has kind of been brewing for years, hasn't it? And look, we all hope that the worst kind of things don't end up happening any more so than they already have. And I feel for the people, like I've seen so many people who've had to kind of send their wives and kids, get them out of Ukraine and send them to France or surrounding countries. And then they stay there because men between 16 and 60 have to stay. They're not allowed to leave the country.
Right.
They're just basically getting the women and children out. And
sure, I've seen some of the older ladies go up to the Russian soldiers and put seeds in their pocket and said, when you die on our soil, may these seeds grow, sort of thing. They've got that kind of bravery being expressed by even the older ladies there. What a difficult situation. We can all have opinions on what's going on out there, but on a personal note, my opinion on it is that this could perhaps have been prevented in just trying to promise Russia or get something in writing that they'll never join NATO. I think that's what a lot of the issue is, isn't it?
It is, but I think there's also a side to it that maybe like Russia and China and Russia wants the old USSR back.
Basically.
The way to do that is to get the surrounding countries back under Russian control. But, I'm no political expert. Ultimately, from my personal point of view, I would just like to see as fewer people die from all sides as possible.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, these people who are making the decisions about going to war and invading countries, they're not the people who are going to be affected by it personally. It's the civilians, the soldiers. They're the people who end up getting hurt, dying, and affected by it long term. So
it's a crazy time because Putin's now brought the nuclear threat into the equation.
Of course he has.
Hasn't he? This has to be responded back by Europe and the USA by
they
doing the same at the end of the day.
They have to respond. It's it's a sad situation, unfortunately. But
it's not up for us to decide, unfortunately, about how it all plays out. All we can do is watch and pray and hope it's as resolvable in the most easiest of ways, in the way that it costs the least amount of lives.
Indeed, mate. And so all we got is hope, my friends, is ultimately. So the UFC guy, the guy last night, who was literally covered in blood, it was a lightweight bout between Arman Tursarkin and Joel Alvarez. It was
Yes.
called in the second round.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
After a hard elbow to Alvarez's face. It was so audible that it drew a reaction from the people around the cage.
Yeah,
it was a big shot. The Spanish fighter's head covered in blood. It was a gnarly cut on his face, I've got to say.
Yeah. He opened him right up, didn't he? And the thing is, he had to do that.
By the way, proved again he is a bad man.
Absolutely.
I'm really
this
excited
guy's
to see where he kind of develops and goes.
Yeah, well, the thing what I'll be telling is if he could come through adversity, we've seen him have his own way with people, which is only commendable to his abilities. But how good is he when he don't get it all his own way? Is he still able to perform? But he beat a very, very difficult opponent in Alvarez. I think he can strike some. Perhaps don't have the outright power of some of the other strikers, but he's lengthy, rangy, awkward. With his striking and just so incredibly dangerous in his grappling. But his grappling really got nullified by Arman. Arman knew exactly what to do to play inside his guard and how to prevent and make it very, very punishable for playing an open guard, to prevent the submissions and sweeps and punish the open guard attempt. Because, of course, to try and get submissions off your back, you have to open your legs. And in doing so, you lose the percentage control of the posture. And the posture is what gained him that drawback on the elbow that completely shredded his face. He's well versed on the ground in terms of defensive, that Arman. You're not going to catch him out of any tricks in the BJJ world. You're just not. You're going to have to beat him, somehow in each area. You have to beat him somewhat in some areas of the striking. You're going to have your successes with the wrestling with him, and likewise on the ground. You're going to have some top position, because clearly he knows what he's doing on top. He's just nullifying all the jiu-jitsu game from these great grapplers. So, yeah, he's the real deal from what we've seen so far, but I'll be more confident that whether he's going to make a real run for things and become a serious contender if I see him in some kind of difficulty, somebody can match him more and push him back and seeing how he can problem solve on the job under pressure, so to speak.
But I agree with you, but there's always a but. Much like Chimaev, if these fighters keep earning the right to just beat people up and they don't get challenged, that's not their fault, is it?
No, it's not.
They're just that good, or they're just that dominant. I'm not saying that he's on the same level as Chimaev, by the way. I'm just using the kind of comparison. Another fight, I know you want to talk about the ladies, but just before we talk about them, Wellington Turman fought Misha Serkinov in the co-main event. What a massive victory that is for Wellington Turman, who's on his way up in the UFC. He's looked pretty good up to now, but Misha Serkinov is a good fighter. He's right up there.
He's come down a weight as well, so he's big at the weight.
I was very impressed with the speed at which Wellington Turman, as soon as he had the opportunity for the armbar, it was done. Yeah,
it was slick. And just like I was saying about Arman, how he shut down the jiu-jitsu, he knew how to smother the hips and rise the posture up so when those legs open, it becomes, dangerous on both sides to a point, but he knew how to shut down the danger from that open guard.
It wasn't the most common, not the armbar position you always see either. He was
it's not. And you know what? It's it's a very old school traditional way of doing an armbar. In that,
is it more painful that way because it looked more painful?
Any extension on the joint is not a comfortable experience. It really isn't. But he hit it so clean. But yes, this compliment Turman on performing such a great hip switch to bring his hips out like that, especially being that they're middleweights. They don't necessarily move the most fastest or slickest like you'll typically see in the lighter weight divisions, but it was a nice, swift, stealthy movement. But really, the mistake that Serkinov made was he allowed him to hold the posture. Now, the posture is the height of the head when you're inside guard, and he allowed him to reach up and connect to the back of his head. And what that does, it allows you to pull yourself up, pull your weight up so you're spinning on your shoulders. So you can spin fluently with live hips meaning off the mat to engage the elbow. So that even when you respond by trying to retrieve your posture, the hips follow up and catch you out on the armbar. And that was the mistake that Serkinov made. Serkinov did the right things with his feet in terms that he was on his knees, on his toes, which a lot of people don't know about. But then you've got to have a straight back, pushing your belly button over their belly button, and that kills the hips and stops someone switching the hips out on you. And what he did wrong was he was on his feet, which is correct, and being on his knees, that's okay. But he had his back curved. And when you have your back curved, your posture's slightly lower. So he was able to engage part of his posture. And of course, you're creating a dome shape. You're creating a dome shape with your back. And it gives all this space for someone to maneuver in. And that's what really ultimately was the undoing of him in the armbar, because he was only touching on the shoulders. He left his elbows extended. And it was a great opportunity that was therefore taken by Turman. I think I've lost my Sai. Hopefully Sai will be back with us in a moment. Hope he ain't going to make me have to repeat everything that I've said. We'll give him a few minutes. I don't know whether everyone else is still with me or whether I'm on my own. I presume everyone is still with me. In which case, I don't know whether anyone else has got comments about that fight that we're talking about. But that Surkov is he's someone that was a real deal to go down a weight. Someone who's quite experienced in my mind. And I had expectations of him winning. In fact, he was doing really, really well. Surkov was getting the takedowns and controlling the matters. He had that sticky situation in the first round where he had his back taken on the feet, and it looked really dire at one point where the choke got put in on him on the feet. But it all become a different realm when he shook Turman off. And he had real opportunities there to do something. But yeah, he threw it all away with that mistake that I explained about, with that, top incline closed position. I carried on talking, Si.
Yeah,
I carried on talking about the fight.
What a pro.
Yeah. I was just filling in the people who was listening. I presumed I was still on air because I saw the count still going on the live. I was just filling them in about how Surkov was actually doing really well in the fight, and it was looking good for that he was going to win it. But he had that one tricky situation, didn't he, in that first round where he had his back taken on the feet, and Turman was really looking good on the choke, wasn't he? But he fell off, and things really changed around there. And then it looked really, really good for Surkov. But yeah, Turman,
Right then, my friends,
what a win.
Finish us off with the ladies, because I know you enjoyed this fight.
Priscilla
Cacheira defeated Ji Ying Kim by unanimous decision.
Yeah, Cacheira, now she kept coming forward and kept getting hit an awful lot. And the commentary picked up on the fact that it looked like Cacheira was doing more work than Kim was, but Kim was just fighting slightly on the back foot. Unless she was willing to stay completely mindless in the pocket along with I'm going to call her Priscilla because it's easier to it's easier to say. Stay in the pocket, Priscilla, and take risks. I thought she actually chose the better tactic, the better strategy to backpedal a little bit. And she was actually striking really well, Kim, and was actually racking up more hits than Priscilla was. And as the rounds unfolded, I felt like it was, going in Kim's favour more. She was looking very, very fluent. She was looking largely undamaged. And there was one point where Priscilla's face just got opened up. She kind of fought with too much anger, too much. I wouldn't even say it's passion. It was just anger or maybe frustration. I think she knew she was getting tagged up a lot. And she was getting marked up. She started getting cut. But then she switched up. I think it was in the second round where she shot in and got a nice takedown. But it was so late in the round that she couldn't really make enough of it. But it might have been enough to take the round. And I liked it when Priscilla was switching up the strategies instead of just trying to strike, because to me she must have known she was getting tagged up a bit and knew it was going to leave it either close in the judge's eye or maybe losing in the judge's eye. So I thought perhaps it would be good policy for her to switch up, maybe put some leg kicks in the equation, because she didn't. She just headhunted pretty much the whole way with her hands, or not just with the leg kicks, shoot in more. I felt like she could perhaps have successes there, but she allowed Kim to really get into the fight and really start finding her rhythm, even though it was on the retraction. She was very much countering and counter-striking, preempting strikes as that Priscilla was coming forward. But Priscilla did start to bring elbows in the equation, didn't she, in that third round? But it's really quite late in that third and final round. But again, she switched it up from just throwing hands. She was getting found out with her hands. She was missing an awful lot. Her work rate was only high when she was putting herself completely open at being countered. But she started coming in with those elbows, and boy, did they work. They opened up Kim. If that had happened, say, in the second round, and she had got onto a different approach, this different tactic, she perhaps could have turned this fight around and been more convincing. I still felt that Kim won it. I really, really did. And I was kind of shocked. And I think Priscilla was also a little shocked, perhaps, that she got a hand raised. I thought Kim did enough to win. I think she was striking beautifully. It got a little ugly towards the end for her. But she had put a lot into her counter strike. And you just see that on the numbers, how many times she threw out strikes and landed her strikes. So she was definitely working hard. So I'm not surprised that, she couldn't keep evading everything that was coming at her, and she got drawn into the fight a little bit from time to time. But yeah, to me, Kim was impressive. Priscilla just looked a little amateurish in her tactics and ability to enforce any kind of strategy. I felt like she was just trying to be a fighter. And although I was impressed with the sort of like the forward and the pressure she was willing to put forward, even though she was getting hit as well, that was really, really impressive. But the actual skill and martial art approach of Kim was actually impressing me more. And I just feel bad for Kim in that I feel like she was hard done by that result. I really do. But it is what it is. She's just got to pick herself up from that. She's got to move forward. She's got to take some good from that. I think she could perhaps work on a couple of things to address having to back off maybe and try to angle and bring more kicks into to the game herself. I think that would have perhaps stopped Priscilla coming forward as much as she was, perhaps to have done more inside leg kicks. I think that would have been a nice, healthy investment for Kim, particularly over the 3 rounds. I think that might have stopped that forward coming Priscilla. But they both got things to learn from that fight, to be honest, from me. I just felt like the result should have gone the other way. I don't know what the listeners thought, if they've seen it, or what you thought of that, but I felt like the result should have gone the other way.
Yeah, so it was pretty close, but I kind of agree. Yeah, I thought it was probably the other way, if I was being...
Yeah, if you have a look at the hit count, it was quite different.
Like, I know stats can sometimes be deceiving, but in this case, I just felt like she had done more than enough to pick up a victory and pushed. But such as judges at the end of the day.
Sure,
it's kind of one of those, isn't it, mate? So that is us for this evening. Quick shout out, of course, to Violent Money, Danny Batten Show, powered by Violent Money, as you'll see just by Danny's face in between me and Danny here. Violent Money TV, you'll find them on YouTube. They have some great interviews. They had Dan Hardy on their channel recently, which was a good one. And as Danny will now puff up his chest beautifully to show he is modeling a white Violent Money t-shirt. Look at that. Beautiful t-shirt there. And I've also got a black Violent Money t-shirt with the other logo on there. I've got my hoodie on underneath because I'm cold. But you can, if you visit violentmoney.co.uk for the latest training apparel, equipment, and clothing, you can use our exclusive code ACE20 to get 20% off. I actually used it the other day to get some boxer shorts, and my wife ordered me a cap and a mask as well. So, you know what to do. You know what to do. Support the brand partners, and of course we got ExpressVPN, the best VPN provider in the game. They have teamed up with Ace Nation Army to support the channel and give you guys 3 months free if you sign up for the 12-month deal. It is a superb little app. If you like to watch Netflix and football, Premier League football on a Saturday at 3:00. Then get this VPN, ExpressVPN, sign up for 12 months. They do offer a 30-day guarantee. If you don't like it after 30 days, then they will refund your money. So there we go. Good shit. Danny, another good one, mate. You enjoyed that, my friend. More guests next week. Ben will be on next week. He apologized. He just couldn't get a good signal at the arena. But we'll talk to him a bit about judging and what like, and Fury and Wilder. And I think there's some boxing next week as well. So we'll have plenty to talk about. Yeah. And of course, there'll be more UFC. Well, let's have a very, very quick look, mate. Very quick look. What's the UFC next week? I forget. So my memory is not as good as it once was. Is it Colby Covington next versus Jorge Masvidal? That's going to be a good one. And Bryce Mitchell's fighting Edson Barboza versus Bryce Mitchell, mate.
That's going to be interesting. Bryce has got to get it to the ground, I would say. He's got to get it to the ground, right?
Well, what a statement, mate, if he was to get Barboza to the ground and tap him out.
Yeah, that'd be quite something. Yeah, I mean, look, this is the thing. You know, tactically, strategically, it's obvious what they're both going to want to do to each other. There's just no secrets there with this match, and it's going to be like an old school match. One's going to clearly want to get it to the ground, and one's clearly going to say it's like two different stylists. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Who you got out of Covington out of interest and Masvidal? I can't see Masvidal beating Covington. I think Covington's just a better version.
Covington's got too much of an all-around.
Yeah, I think it's just too many skills that match him and outmatch him potentially. I think Masvidal's the potential warrior of the two, willing to perhaps trade more for longer. But I don't think Covington will fall down that road. And
no,
I just think he'll end up. Right? I think he'll just end up out wrestling him. I think that's probably where the main difference is going to be. I think he'll just end up. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I enjoy watching it. I think it'll be a good fight. But I just think to myself, if Covington wins, he could keep building himself up for another shot, I guess. But if Masvidal loses, I don't know, where does he go from there? It becomes a difficult path for him.
Well, and then say that if he loses, like, is he almost too damaged to get the McGregor fight? I don't know. It's a weird one.
Yeah. Well, but then McGregor's, he's perhaps it's a more suitable fight. But how much interest it's going to drum up just seeing two guys that have lost fight each other?
I think McGregor. They was talking about Makhachev fighting McGregor, but ultimately I think Michael Chandler's probably the best bet.
That would be the better matchup. Absolutely,
from an excitement point of view. But we'll see. Right, guys, as always, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week with an all-new guest, Ben Doherty, and, of course, Mr. Daniel Batten. But until then, have a look at all the sponsors. Check out the Sports Social. Most of all, spread the word. Make sure you're subscribed, all that good stuff. See you later.
Right.